They talk about structural violence. We do agree that conceptually that people shouldn't live in poverty. However, our argument is saying that we shouldn't just look at the intentions of a policy. Instead, we should look at if this policy can actually address the poverty before implementing it. What we're saying is that UBI will lead to more poverty. Let me make it clear. We're not saying that the status quo is perfect. We're simply saying that UBI will make the status quo worse and make structural violence even worse. They say that we're utilitarianism. We're not. We're consequentialism. Next, move on. If you think about it politically, the politicians will use one policy like the UBI and tell everyone that we already solved for all the harms in capitalism, and that prevents further improvements in our society. And also, they don't solve for capitalism at all because our economic system is capitalist. So even if we have UBI, it doesn't change anything. The corporations are still going to exploit the workers, and the rich industries will still own most of the money. And also, there will be no... Their two links are basically alienation and money. However, that's not true. If people receive UBI and stop working, they will still be alienated because they will still be poor with only $1,000 per month. And also, they say that people don't need to work. However, that completely contradicts with their answer on work ethic. They say that people won't quit their work, which means that people still need to work for survival. So that completely contradicted with their whole capitalism contention. And now onto the economy debate. They started these experiments say that it doesn't lead to inflation or bad economic outcomes, but if you think about it, these experiments were only successful because it was on a small scale, meaning that the government can just allocate existing federal funds. However, if we want to test these trials on a larger scale, it means that the government will have to allocate new funds, like tax increase. And now onto inflation. We're not going to talk about currency inflation. We're talking about progressive tax here, not recessive tax. What we're saying is when we increase progressive tax on the industries, they will then increase the price of their products and pass along the tax to the consumers, which means that even if we only increase progressive tax, it's still going to make it worse for the poor. For example, if we tax the energy industries, they're going to increase their electricity price, and the poor people spend greater portion of their income on electricity, which means that it is still going to hurt the poor more. And also, they talked about work productivity. However, all our studies already said that people tend to work for less hours under a UBI.
All right, we'll take a minute. You got the first question. Time starts now.
Okay, you said that our answers on inflation doesn't count. So is giving 100 people cash the same thing as giving like 3 million people cash? Does it lead to the exact same effect that you're advocating for?
But unless you have empirical evidence, such as the Mexico case, to prove otherwise, you're going to have to favor our case because of two reasons, right? We explained that in the summary and then the rebuttal. First on methods, second on system.
Just to be clear,
Excuse me, it's my turn for a question. So you talk about poverty, right? So in the definition of universal basic income, it's basically designed to support people's basic needs. So I want to ask, what's the impact of poverty if you don't actually die from poverty? Don't actually, like if you are poor, like you are relatively poor, but you can support your basic needs with UBI, right?
Can I answer this question?
Alright.
This question is really funny because their whole framework is on structural violence.
Yeah.
If you're in poverty, then you suffer from structural
Well, if
violence.
you heard our definition of structural violence, we said that these people have no access to their basic needs. Now they have.
Can I clarify the question?
So what we're saying is if you put these people into poverty, it just exacerbated social violence because basically if you're poor, you face more violence. That's common sense.
Can you
ask a question?
Can we clarify the question because you didn't really, like, you answered to the wrong question. It wasn't exactly that question. The question was that theoretically, and by definition, UBI will raise the threshold of poverty, right? Because it will lift people out of poverty by giving them the minimum amount to make them not impoverished severely. So in that definition, why would people still be more impoverished, right? If people are more impoverished, it means it's not
the
UBI,
reason for that is because, yes, theoretically, a UBI is supposed to solve for
by
poverty,
definition.
but we think that the consequences...
If it is not doing that, then
Not
by
like
definition,
Can we
it's not
finish
UBI.
Can we finish
Okay,
explaining?
so look, they never answered to our answers that when we increase progressive taxes on the corporations, they're gonna increase the price of their products, which means that the poor people will still need to pay for more. This is gonna create more poverty, like we said.
I thought that was your inflation argument.
Yes,
and then
and
that
that's the
leads to
reason why it hurts the
inflation.
economy.
But I thought we also responded to that with our Mexico case.
The Mexico case
It's
is talking
why.
about the supply and demand of supplies. Our taxation
Not
argument
necessarily,
is
though.
saying
It's
that
the overall
when we
conclusion
fund
that
UBI,
inflation doesn't happen.
no, that's not the same thing. You're talking about
No,
the
but your
supply
argument is
and
inflation, though.
wait,
Alright, can we move on to the next question?
we're
Wait,
talking
no, we
about
think this is
inflation
alright.
of products, not about your experiment in Mexico. They're
Yeah.
two different things.
Because our study is saying that the products of the
Alright, let's end conversation regarding this question right now.
Now,
So
can we have a
we say
question
that
now?
we are the only evidence in this round that is the best for two reasons. One, it's the only controlled experiment in this round that proves the relation between
Wait,
UBI and
is that a
inflation.
question?
And secondly,
Sorry,
market
what?
functions
Are you
the
just
same
talking?
everywhere. So
You-
basically, it proves that principally cash transfer
Okay, can we
does
ask
not
a
aggravate
question?
inflation.
Yes, of course you're gonna say that your evidence is the best.
You can ask me a question,
Like,
man. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you say that your evidence is the best? That's why we're proving that
Of
your
course,
evidence
because
are
you
not
have zero
right.
evidence countering it. That's
No, we're
why
saying
it's
that your
best.
experiments are
Okay,
wrong
that's
because
fine.
no one. Yeah.
How much do we have? Does anyone know?
To implement a UBI costs $3 trillion to do so. It means that governments are forced to either increase taxes or cut the remaining welfare systems. This means that it has two effects. One is inflation. It's because they drop the argument that progressive taxes that are necessary to fund for a UBI will force corporations to increase their prices, which puts the burden on the consumers, which leads to inflation. This has empirically been proven by multiple studies that we conducted in places like Iran, where it led to more inflation. This means that the Mexico example doesn't even apply because, one, it was too small of a scale, an argument that they didn't even answer, and two, their method was problematic because it dealt with supply and demand, not necessarily the price of the goods that went up or down. And this means that inflation will lead to more poverty because it means that as the economy goes down, people have less opportunities to find a job, which means to find a job and sustain themselves, which means that all of their impacts will be exacerbated. In addition, it'll lead to more structural violence. The second argument that will happen is it'll trade off with other welfare programs that are affected. They have conceded arguments like how healthcare, public education, as well as food stamps are all helpful at contributing to solving for poverty. The fact that they trade off with these programs means that the status quo is better. Welfare might not be perfect, but the fact that it's shown to decrease poverty in the past means that you shouldn't just eliminate it. Next, they talk specifically about how we should weigh our morals, but we're talking about how we should weigh the consequences of our actions to determine whether our actions are moral. And next, they talk specifically about how people will have the right to quit working things. But then the problem is that a UBI is not enough. People will still have to go to their jobs. It's only a couple $1,000s, which means that people will still be forced to work, which means that all of their impacts will happen again. And next, they talk about alienation and justice. Remember that these people will still remain poor because as inflation and the economy goes down, it'll force structural violence levels to go up. In addition, they can't solve for the larger system of capitalism. I don't think they understand the fundamental premise that politicians will use this one example of a UBI and use it to not do any more like liberal policies that help the poor in the future, which means all of their impacts get worse in the long run.
Asian Debate Lead, Kelly Phillips. Asian Debate Lead, Brandon Chen.